Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another Tech Topics. This is a topic that we've covered here and there in different parts of it, but we're going to be talking about recording studios, specifically library recording studios today. So get ready to dive into that. My name is Lisa. I'm with the Tampa-Hillsborough County Public Library, and I'm joined today by my pal Vivian, who is going to be helping me out with this program, and we're going to jump right in and get started. So big points we're going to look at today is kind of what these recording studios are, how they work, how you can use them, how you can't use them, different features to look for because not all of our recording studios are the same. Each one's set up a little bit uniquely. And I'll do a quick demonstration on how you can get signed up to use them. We'll show you how to do that while we're in the program. Remember, keep those questions coming in as we go along, and check it out on our hcplc.org/tech topics if you want to catch up on previous programs. So digital recording. So everything that we're doing in that studio, the whole object is to get a recording of what we're doing. So we've got two different aspects to that. We've got the hardware and the software. The hardware is going to be your USB interface, your cable interface, the stuff that plugs in and out. So that's going to be your microphones, your instruments, any kind of controllers that you might be using to modulate the sound or to a soundboard where you could adjust it. So the gadgets, the stuff that you plug in. And then the software, there are lots of different options. The library will have some of them preloaded on their editing software and recording software at the library. We'll look at a couple more of those in detail while we go through it. So we've got the big three listed here: GarageBand, Audacity, and Pro Tools. Logic might be available depending on the studio that you're using. So real quick, real rough, the setup basics. Keep in mind, it might not look identical to this at the studio that you're using, whether it's a library studio or a different makerspace studio that you might be using. But this is going to be your basics. They're all going to be different versions of the same thing. So you'll have a microphone, and it'll usually be in a cage that's got it suspended on elastic bands to kind of avoid any clicky-clacky interference. You've got your microphone stand, so something to hold that up. The cables to attach it to whatever you're using to record, and your ports. Where are you going to plug those cables into? So you'll see on the picture on the left here that those ports are in the wall. That's because on the other side of that wall, behind that glass, that's your control room. That's where the person is sitting who is picking up that audio and using it to record. You have that separately so you don't have interference between what the microphone's picking up in the studio and the different surfaces that are in the control room. On the right-hand side, we've got some microphone or some headphones there for you. The library will have headphones available there. They're pretty decent pro-level Sennheiser headphones there. But if you have your own headphones that you want to use, absolutely bring them with you. So anything like that, instrument, microphone, headphone-wise that you would want to use your own, you're absolutely welcome to bring that. Just make sure that you have any cables or adapters that you might need because we might not have the right one for you depending on what your device is. And then we have an audio interface or volume control. And we'll look at an example of that on the next slide over. There we go. So this is kind of an example of what that would look like. You've got your cables going into it and you've got a little headphone jack coming out of it. That's your interface there. And you've got your knobs on the right-hand side that's letting you adjust your levels, your volume on that. So this is just an example of a basic type of head amp that you could use to control what audio you're getting. You've got your microphones. You might have two turntables, maybe a microphone. In this case, we've just got a microphone. You'll see the cable on the left there with the type of plug that it has, and then the receiving end of it in the bottom of the microphone. So this is a pretty standard microphone cable setup that you'll see with that 3-prong setup. So if you have your own professional level microphones, odds are pretty good it's going to be the same type of connection. These have been industry standard for many, many years. So most technology that you have, even if you have secondhand technology, maybe from a relative, odds are pretty good that it is still compatible with what we're using. It's a very simple technology, but it's effective because it's simple. On the right there, that is not showing you the cable. That's just showing you that you can adjust the microphone. So you turn that little screw there, and that lets you tilt the microphone up so that you can adjust the angle and how close you're standing to it and what angle you're speaking into it. All kinds of adjustments are optional there. Kind of play around with it, see what works best for you. Here's some more cables, and ports. Again, we're just going to kind of glance at it now. This isn't something that we need to get into too much detail on for today's program, because these are going to look just a little bit different depending on the studio that you're using. But I really wanted to make sure that you had a chance to see of what kind of thing you can expect when you do go. So you're not surprised when you see that it's maybe not all direct USB-C cables or Wi-Fi. Wanted to make sure that you saw what kinds of cables that we use and maybe give you some good news if you have some older cables that you might have gotten from a friend or a relative, and you can be happy to know that they'll work on this. So take a look at that real quick. We've got pictures, we've got guidebooks. So once you get to the studio, you'll get the orientation on specifically how to set up the location that you're at, the gear that you're using. So don't think that you need to take notes and get this information down today. This is just kind of giving you an idea of what you can expect when you get there. All right, that's what it looks like assembled. So we had that first picture with the arrows and showing you the setup basics. Yeah, that picture right there, exactly. So when it's all clean, put together, ready to go, this is what it's going to look like. Here's a little bit more of a close-up on that, what that looks like. You got your Sennheisers and your microphones and your pop filters all in place there. Another quick look at our software. This is software that's already preloaded on the iMac that is in the recording studio. Our recording studios might look a little bit different in terms of setup and maybe the specific cables or controls that they're using there, but the software is the same basically at all of them. It's going to be an iMac, and it's going to be loaded up with these basic software options on there. That said, if you have your own device and you're able to plug that in, by all means, bring that with you, but this is already available and ready to go. And like I said, there are guides in terms of how to set up the devices, how to get into the software. There's going to be little cheat sheet books available at the location that you're at, and you will go through an orientation before you use them. So don't worry about knowing this off the bat right now. So where can you use it? So we've got 4 of our bigger recording studios. These are in our 5 locations that we have across the county. We have our downtown location at the John F. Germany Library. We've got C. Blythe Andrews Jr. Public Library, South Shore Regional Library, and Riverview Public Library. So those are big hive maker spaces that have that recording studio space specifically set up for this. So you'll go to hcplc.org/recording studio to get more details about that. They're going to have downloadable material for like your handbooks and your like the guides that you would need to follow to use the space. That's all going to be available on that website. And I mentioned this before, but you do need to do an orientation session before you use the recording studio. This is something that's not optional. It's required for anybody that wants to book time in the recording studio. So check that out on our calendar, hcplc.org/events. That'll let you find when those orientation sessions are happening. They do tend to fill up pretty quickly, so you'll have to maybe check, keep an eye on those schedules, maybe get on a waiting list to get to the location that you want. If you find that the location that you're hoping to, whose recording studio you're hoping to use, maybe they don't have a recording session right now, you might try checking with the branch and seeing if you can complete the orientation at a different location. That's kind of going to be on a branch by branch basis, depending if they have the ability to do that or not. So definitely get that scheduled if you're interested in using it. It's going to be a really great opportunity for you to get in the space, kind of see it, touch it with your own hands, and get familiar with what the setup is, how to get checked in, and how to get up and running. You will need to bring your own USB flash drive to save anything that you do. So that's a big, big thing to remember. There's really no way for you to export that data, to save that data, unless you bring your USB storage with you. The computers will wipe between users. You can't really save it on the device there. So you'll need to make sure to save that and take it home with you, have that ready for your next session. When you're looking at USBs, keep in mind, you do want to get one that's a reasonably high capacity and a reasonably high write speed. That's going to be pretty important for you so that you're not running out of room or having it lag and be really slow when it's trying to save. For the locations that have time available to book in their studios, you can reserve that up to 2 months ahead of time, but you do need to have done your orientation before you can do it. So once you've done the orientation, you'll be able to book those ahead of time. You can get up to 8 hours, but just keep in mind, they do generally have the ability to let you in on a walk-in basis after you've done your orientation. So just because you might not have a reserve time, you might be able to be on standby, see if somebody does a no-show on their appointment, and you'd be able to get in and use the space. It is booked in 2 to 4 hour blocks, so that should give you plenty of time to get started, get set up. But if you're after your 2 hours are over, if nobody else has booked the space, you can generally stay in there for a longer period of time until someone else's reservation comes up. And we want to make sure that you get the most out of your time. So 2 to 4 hours seems like a lot maybe, but once you get in there and get working, that time flies. So we want to make sure that you have all the knowledge that you need before you go into there to really make the most of that time. If you need to brush up on some of your software and recording software and editing tools, check out our online classes, hcplc.org/online classes. LinkedIn Learning has a lot of really great tools for a lot of the Adobe features and some of the other pro recording software on there. So give that a go, kind of get familiar with that software before you're even in there using it, and that'll give you a jump start. Going to throw another quick link in there, information about our maker spaces. I mentioned before the recording studios are in our locations that have that bigger makerspace facility. Our makerspace, we call it the Hive. We have some that have some or all of these features in there. So only 4 of our branches have that recording studio, but some of them will also have crafting areas and sewing machine tools, desktop cutters, laser cutters, all kinds of fun stuff. Definitely check it out. It's one of my favorite things. hcplc.org/hive will give you lots of good information to track down the details on that. And boom, we are pretty much wrapped up on the nitty-gritty of how to get into our makerspace. I'm going to leave this up on the screen for just a moment, but what I will try to do here in the background is pull up our library website and give you a view of how that works when you want to book your orientation schedule. So got our website loaded up here for you. Zoom that in just a little bit. So hcplc.org, the library homepage. up here in the middle where it says events and classes. You can click right on there, and that's going to be our big calendar. So the easiest way that I've found to do it is you just go to the big calendar and just type in recording. And that should give you all of the upcoming recording studio orientations that we have. You know, maybe a little tech topics on March 22nd at 6 p.m. Oh, wait, that looks familiar. But yeah, so you see we have them on the schedule at different times, sometimes mornings, sometimes afternoons, sometimes evenings. So check that out. There's going to be different locations. We've got our Riverview location here. Let's see, we've got our John F. Germany location there. So they're going to be spread out depending on if that studio is able to book orientations at that time. So check it out, keep an eye on it. You'll see registration closed. It's going to really depend on the specific session, whether they have room in it or not. So, but do check that out. Get yourself on that orientation schedule, and yeah, let us know if you have any questions. Bring those slides back up for you. There we go. All right, I'm going to move this out of the way. Here we go, get our camera back up here. All right, Miss Vivian, do we have any pressing questions coming in about our recording studios?
So one question that came in, do you know if they are allowed to bring a guest that does not, if they don't have, in other words, a person going to the recording studio has a library card, but their guest doesn't, would they be allowed into the recording studio as a guest?
So it's really going to depend on the specifics there, and that's going to at times be a branch by branch situation. Some of the recordios are bigger spaces where there might be room for you to reasonably bring somebody in that's maybe just observing. Check with the individual branch when you do your orientation session, and they'll let you know for sure what the policy is going to be at that location. There's going to be different rules depending on if the person is a minor or whatnot. So always recommend checking with the branch that whose recording studio you're using when you're doing that orientation to find that out, because it is subject to different situations.
Okay. And the other question, which I think you covered, was the amount of time. So if it goes over the allotted time, are they, from your opinion, are they pretty lenient as far as giving you extra time if needed?
Yeah, so as long as the space hasn't been reserved after you, I would say in the overwhelming majority of cases, they're not going to say, time's up, you ran out of your time, if nobody else is waiting. That's not something that would happen normally. There might be other situations that the branch would say, hey, we can't go overtime today because of whatever reason. So I'm not saying there wouldn't be an exception to that once in a while, but generally speaking, if nobody's scheduled to use the room after you and the library is still open, in overwhelming majority of the cases, you'd be fine to stay and keep using it.
Okay.
I see we have a question in here about bringing gear with them. Yeah, you're always welcome to bring your own gear with you. Do keep in mind, I mentioned this before, make sure that you have any cables or connectors that you might need, because we're not going to have extras of that for things that aren't, the library devices. So we know what devices we have and what cables and connectors we need to connect that to our setup, but we're not going to have stuff for devices that we don't own. So if you're bringing in an instrument or anything like that, we'll have some limited connection options for you there, but it's always best to, if you're bringing your own device, to bring your own connection with that as well.
Okay.
Good question.
Yeah.
And I think that does it. I don't see any other questions in our box, but remember, you can always reach out to us, hcplc.org/contact, 813-273-3652. On our contact page, you also have that wonderful Ask a Librarian function. They are there during business hours. So if you just have a quick question of, hey, I saw this program, I was getting ready to sign up for the recording studio orientation, but I forgot XYZ. Just pop into that Ask a Librarian chat box. It's one of us. It's a local Hillsborough County librarian staff member that's answering those. So they will be able to get you that information really quickly. And hcplc.org/tech topics has an overview of all of the tech topics that we've done before, including previous sessions that we did on recording studios and digital home recording, other related topics that might be interesting to you. And of course, you can check those out on our YouTube channel at Tampa Hills Live. That is also linked on our hcplc.org/tech topics, so you can get your shortcut there. So with that said, thank you, everyone. We hope to see you next time. Vivian, thank you. And we'll see you soon. Bye, folks.
Bye.